Appreciate you joining us for this podcast today. And we're trying to bring lean and agile to the next level with the Harada Method. Our guest today is Norman Bodak. And if you guys don't know, I refer to Norm as the godfather of lean. There's myself, John Ballas, Ahmed, and Christopher. Our agenda for today is we're going to cover a little bit of an opening statement, why we're here, and then we're going to go into agile coaching and lean coaching, and then how do we bring lean and agile to the next level through the Harada Method. So I'm not going to read off the graph, but I'm going to read you a statement if you pay attention to this, please. So why are we here today? Because some of us are tired of not getting sustainable results that we need for our organizations and for ourselves. The reason that we have tried to do this is to help broaden the aspects of everybody's knowledge and improve your personal ROIs. The truth is that most organizations today who consider themselves lean really only utilize lean tools as an ongoing firefighting mode to remove waste. And effective as some of these tools may be in the early stage of lean, 95% of the power of lean management systems is left on the shelf. Like using only 5% of your brain as your people, that's just ludicrous. Why would we do that? But what is lean? It tends to be a holistic, high-performance operating system. Embracing lean as the core operating system rather than just a set of tools. Is companies like Danaher, who benchmarked Toyota as an example, then created their own system. In the previous meetings, we've talked about you need to develop things based on your own DNA and your organizational's DNA. So when you think about this, there's a few good examples of companies that have done this in the past very successfully. But only 1.6% of companies who do lean sustain the efforts after 10 years. Why is this? For every organizational struggles in this economy, there's countless organizations' operational growth and uninterrupted success as a result of a lean coaching approach. And it doesn't have to just be lean there. It could be agile. It could be Six Sigma. It could be operational excellence. But, the philosophy has been lean for some time. Truly, progressive lean organizations, the one that shines the brightest, are the most profitable, have representation in their industry, understand a more holistic, inspired method of operational excellence creates wasteless enterprises. This, less firefighting, more value for your customers. It's to the point that we must understand what good looks like. However, here's the final point. The missing link in these studies that have been done in methodology coupled with lean tools and the Harada method is what is needed. So whatever tool set you're using, the Harada method that you'll learn about more today if you don't know about it is about setting goals and becoming accountable. If we want to keep maintaining this crazy curve on this graph, where only 1.6% of companies are able to sustain this after 10 years, that's just absolutely ludicrous. Why would CEOs invest in allowing companies to be trained in additional methods? And so when you follow the graph and you look at 1 year, people seem to maintain the tools and they have them and they don't take them, for granted. Then second year, the tools are less used. The next year, you get less results. And you can see how the graph progresses when we look at after 10 years, our success rate, and personal success rate, by the way, is tied to this, is only 1.6%. So today, in summary, we're going to cover both of these areas. The background is important. It's about transformations. You may have agile in there, transformation, you may have lean, operational excellence, whatever it might be to create sustainability. And that's what we're trying to help people with, is add this element of the people, which Norm will talk about as the eighth waste, is add this element of utilizing people and having people be enthusiastic and passionate. And some of you that know me out there, you know that I believe that passion and enthusiasm moves the needle more than any one set of tool of Lean or Six Sigma or anything. Because if you don't personally believe in what you're doing, why would your people follow you? So you have to personally believe. And then Norm said just a little while ago, I really like it, it's sort of interesting. Look in the mirror, and what do you see? If an organization was to look in the mirror, what would they see? So with that, I want to turn it over to Ahmed, but the goal is to help get you enthusiastic by the time you leave here today, be passionate about this, and invest the time to learn more about the Harada Method coupled with what you're going to learn about Lean and Agile. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Ahmed.
Thank you, John. And that's a wonderful, burning platform to gather together and get our visions together. There's the opportunities to improve based on all the data, all the stock data. So I'm going to jump right into the Agile part of Harada Method. And some of you, I'm not going to assume any prior knowledge, but I'm going to just share the elements that connect back to Harada. So the first thing I have to say is that Harada Method fits very, very well with what Agile stands for. And it is a solution to two reasons why Agile adoption fails. And before even that, let's go back to a little bit of a summary version. So Agile started in the software world and about 18, 19 years ago. And that time they discovered some fundamental truths about teams, how teams work, how high performance teams work. And during that time, they've evolved it from software to something that is encompassing the whole businesses. And we see time and time again, too much tool focus, too much focus away from people is the reason why it technically fails many, many times. So you probably have, for people who are from the Agile background, you may have seen this sticker. Two parts or two tenets of modern Agile is making people awesome and making safety a prerequisite. Now, when I say safety, it means psychological safety. And this is where people have autonomy to control their own futures, to live their best selves, to live each day as a masterpiece. And that's important if you create the guardrails and you provide the way to grow in that manner. Now, some people may say, oh yeah, it's just software, but software has eaten up the whole world. So it's a lot about how humans work and how they're not really just machines, and how we have to bring the whole human in and make them utilize to their best, to their optimal potential. I'm not going to read through each of the slides, but there's a lot of truth on who your customers are. And I love Norman introduced me to Inamori's work, where they say, well, I want to make sure that first the people who are working here, they are happy. And that's the first method. And then the next step is you design for your people first, not for your stakeholders, which is a whole different topic. But this is essentially looking at the human side of things. And how do we make people awesome? Give them the right tools, right conditions to thrive and grow. And I think this is where Harada Method is awesome, because it helps people to grow and choose their own futures and really, really stretch into new things that they've never tried before. If there's fear, if there's vulnerability that's been blocked, then we know that quite does not work in an Agile environment. So we want to not inflict Agile, but use that model to grow people. And Harada Method has that framework, has that rigor to make it happen. I'm going to step back to the software part of things. So this is a famous guy in the Agile world, and he's almost, like an Einstein, if there was one in the software development world. And he says, it's a pursuit of perfecting, not a pursuit of perfection. Because the moment you say you're perfected, you're not going to grow. The moment you say, yeah, I'm at the max level, you're not going to ever try harder. So this is where the coaching mechanism, in which I've seen grow again and again. Somebody, those external eyes and ears, who's going to take you from where you are and take you to the next level. And it's a lot about attitude. So Norman introduced me to this formula, like effort times attitude times skill, right, is what what this formula, the magic formula is. But attitude is the big multiplier. So if you don't have the right attitude, forget about the other tools, but their multiplying effect is not as much. And there is a natural cycle of things. So some of you may have seen this. It's also from Japanese, and our Agile people love to use this around to describe teams. But remember, teams is also based on individuals. So it's kind of a looking backwards of those individual people and how each one of them have to be great. For a company or a team to be great, each one of you have to be great. So so these are like the mastery curve, the shu, ha, ri. When you are shu, you're just copying. When you're at ha, you're bending the rules. When you're at ri, you kind of form your own rules. And then go further than that, it just becomes very, very simple, or just mastering the scales, the basic stuff. Now, how does this tie back? So I want to take an example of one of my close friends and an Agile coach, Steve Silbert, and I have permission to share this from him. He's an Agile coach and a sketchnoting expert. This whole visual facilitation has taken the world by storm. It is coming to boardrooms, but there's a very, very tough learning curve to be really, really master at that. So Steve, his portfolio on his website, I would encourage you to visit it. What's interesting is that he had a method to this madness. And although he was not using Harada Method at that time, and he's not quite doing it, but I have touched base with him multiple times, and it fits perfectly well with the Harada Method, which is find out who are the best people, right? Go on a research thing, make it into tiny, tiny aspects. He has a physics background. So drawing came very difficult to him. But he started with stencils. He would stencil, and people were joking, what are you doing with stencils? But from there, he kind of grew, he challenged himself more. So each one of those aspects, and if you're familiar with the Harada Method, and I think many of you have attended these sessions before, there is a method to make those individual goals actionable on a day-by-day basis. And this is exactly how he developed. From where he is today, where he's tapped on the shoulder to do very, very complex Agile coaching as well as visual facilitation together. So he has evolved in a level from knowing nothing about it to being considered one of the masters in this particular art form. So I'm going to shift to my own example. So I've been working with Norm. I'm eating my own dog food, as they say, in the Harada Method. So this is way back from 2018. And I'm not going to do a deep dive, but there's the mechanisms, the ideas of a backlog. And, there's 40 items in my backlog from the long-term sheet, but I only take 8 of them. And then I divide them up, I make them actionable. And the whole PDCA cycle, the inspect and adapt, is very much alive in the Agile world of things. So from a backlog to what I'm committing to a day-to-day basis, to checking myself and working with a coach to improve, I've seen and I've reaped benefits from it. Just as an example, I just came back from China for a 3-month assignment, and it was mind-blowing, but I had technically prepared and made small chunks of things that I wanted to achieve towards the goal of maximizing my trip and maximizing my potential so I can grow in that trip itself alone. And Harada Method was a part and parcel in this whole journey. I'm going to stop here. So in Agile, we use the metaphor of fluency. Fluency is skillful ease, something you don't have to think about. And, given time and a whole lot of, if you had infinite life in a proper setting, perfect conditions, anybody can practice. But fluency requires deliberate practice, where you are doing things with routine, ease, even when your mind is distracted. And this is what Harada Method allows you to provide that focus on a day-to-day basis. And this is a statement by Martin Fowler. Another person I like to refer to is Anders Ericsson, who's considered the expert on expertise. And it is famously attributed to 10,000 hours, although there's some confusion on what that means. But deliberate practice is knowing what you need to do and how to get there. And without deep planning like Harada Method, it's going to be just wishful thinking, like those New Year resolutions that start in December and die in January, right? So this is what makes it possible to do it throughout on a continuous basis. So I'm going to stop here. and hand it off to Christophe. So I'm going to stop sharing. Christophe, you can take over.
Yes. Thank you very much, Ahmed. It was really inspiring. And hello to everybody. I will continue on the topic lean coaching. And I will reflect on what Ahmed just said regarding the Harada Method and how you can grow your people to reach your goals. So let me first introduce, kind of things I'm doing. I'm working in process teams, and we are working on digitalizing and automating processes, and we are using lots of frameworks. So all of you who are working in digitalization projects and process excellence and all this kind of stuff, you are just using frameworks. So you are using Lean Startup to build MVPs and validate your hypothesis. You are using design thinking to be innovative and creative. You are certainly rolling out Agile in your IT or in your product development, or both, by developing software using sprints. Scaling Agile is one topic. We are using SAFe, maybe you are using less, or any kind of frameworks. Lean is, for me, really a great topic, and I try to leave the Lean message at home and in the workplace, and process automation and robotics RPI. So you have lots of stuff going on in the digitalization, but there's one central topic which is missing pretty everywhere, and that's the change management aspect and the coaching aspect. So in the Lean community, we have one very good framework which has been studied by Mike Rother, which is Toyota Kata. I will say a few words about it because I think that's a nice way to introduce coaching. And then I will show you my example, how coaching is something I do on a daily basis, and what the Harada Method means to me, how I use it, and I will show you some templates. So here my message is, you can buy frameworks, you can buy tools, system, consultants. You can certainly achieve lots of things using tools, but at some point you have people, you have to change people and make them evolve and make the best from the people you have and make the best out of you. And this is the topic of coaching, and this is something I want to go into the details with you. So on the next slide, I would like to introduce you to Toyota Kata. So the guys who know Toyota Kata know this by heart. And if you've never seen that, that's from Mike Rother. The improvement kata is the way of thinking for coaches. So you want to understand what's the challenge, where you are, what's your next target condition, and you want to experiment. And I love this model because it's fantastically easy to use, and you have some questions to start with. That's the starter kata. And the coach will work together with the coachee on a daily basis to really understand if the coachee is thinking using scientific thinking. Okay, so the coach will come and will ask, what's the target condition? What's the current condition now? What have you learned? Let's try to reflect on that. Do you see any obstacles? What's your next step? How quickly can we go and see that? So by deploying this kind of approach, you tend to improve the culture in your company and develop a scientific thinking approach. Fantastic. It works very well on the shop floor. You can use that on the office as well. It's a great, great stuff. There's one thing which is missing, and which is really the development of each person, so that each person reach their own potential and goes to work really full of joy and full of happiness. This is something which is still missing, and that's where the Harada Method is coming and is providing you the right framework and the right tools for you to grow and for you to coach your people, your team, and your entire organization. Okay, so basically, Norman will present you the method in a minute. You have a few templates which help you reflect on you. My way to the Harada Method was I started the coaching session with Norman. We met every week. Norman has a great book about the Harada Method. You can read it and discover fantastic stories around lean coaching. I've used all the forms which come with the Harada Method, and that's a way, as Ahmed said, to reflect about your potential, your goals, your dreams, and to make you think about actionable actions, how to make that a reality. Okay, so you have an app. Norman will present it later on. For me, I use it every day, like 30 minutes to 45 minutes. The first step for me is always to reflect on the day. As you know, in Lean, PDCA is central. You always want to plan, do, check, act. And when you PDCA your life and when you Kaizen your life, you really want to study every day what was planned, what did I do, what actually happened, what was good, what was not good, and check your routines. And after the reflection part, you can put some corrective actions, define some new routines, some new tasks for the next day, and send that to the coach. The role of the coach is very important. There are not a lot of people who reach a high level of mastery without a coach. Actually, you always need a coach to help you reach your goals. Okay, and this is the kind of methodology which I'm using for myself and which I'm rolling out with my team as well. If we go into the details, that's my lessons learned based on deploying the method and using it with people and testing it. So the way I teach it at the moment is, let's try to teach it in a way that it's quick and easy for everybody to learn. So the first level for me is you just need 3 minutes a day, or you just need 2 minutes a day. If you know the approach of Paul Akers, 2-second lean, you want to start moving yourself in the right direction with 2-3 minutes a day, which means you first start to reflect about your long-term goal. You want to make sure that your vision, your dreams are very clear in your head. You have to fix a North Star. That's part of the methodology. And then you define short-term goals. You define for yourself the path. How do you want to succeed? What milestones do you want to reach? And after that, you start already defining routine. So I want you to think about the long-term goals, short-term goals, and already going into some very small and easy routines, which you start practicing. And by practicing mini improvements, this will put the brain in a position to accept larger changes later on. That's why Kaizen is very important in the office. If you start using Kaizen every day, you will feel comfortable when you will have some large improvement projects to do. So that's kind of the first step. The second step, when you grow in coaching and as a coachee, you want to reflect more deeply about yourself and go really into the details of the goal settings. This is where you have a long-term goal setting form. And here you reflect about your past, about your failures, about your past successes, problems, solutions, and you go into the details. And as you go into yourself, and as Norman says, as you look yourself into the mirror, you will discover new aspects of your personality that you would like to change and new routines that you would like to add to your daily program so that you can effectively change yourself and move yourself into the direction of having new skills, having a happy life, and growing as a person, and finding joy at home and at the workplace. Okay, and finding a coach which you can trust and which is truly interested in developing you is a key factor. Okay, it's not so easy to coach. There are not a lot of good coaches out there, and you have to have a good opportunity to have a great coach which really wants to help you. Okay, and the third level is the full Harada Method. This is where you definitely want to change your life deeply, and you need to invest time for yourself. This is the opportunity for you to check with 33 words all the details of your person to complete the 64 chart. This is what Ahmed showed to you with the post-it, and add a new task and new routines. And you want to reflect about the day, plan new actions for the next day, review your goals, and keep a journal and work with a coach. And you want to have some daily improvements. And as you practice that over time, you will see some massive changes in your personality, the way you behave, the way you coach, and the way you manage. So that's my way. That's how I use it, how I teach it. And the last point is a reflection about coaching, where it's really quite interesting to deploy that in a company and to start on the team level and try to experiment in your team and having some people coaching other people. So my lessons learned here is it's really motivating to start immediately with some mini changes. Don't try to start with some huge changes. You cannot change overnight. But already start with some mini new practices. For example, basic stuff like drinking more water, meditating 1 minute a day, going for a walk after the lunch. But you put that on a piece of paper and you check daily that you do that. And over time, you can extend this practice. And if you start small, it takes almost no time, and it really prepares you for future bigger steps. Of course, it demands discipline. You cannot change and you cannot achieve a level of mastery if you are not disciplined. You have to think about guys in sports or in business or managers. You really have to dedicate some of your time to yourself every day to be able to grow. Nothing happens alone, okay? And my experience, so this is very personal, when I coach, I love coaching. It really requires empathy, authenticity, and servant leadership. So again, that's not something that everybody likes to do or everybody can do. But if you're really deep diving the Lean and Agile's principles and values, servant leadership is a very important part of it. And you want to serve others, empower others, and make sure others feel well and grow within your company and within your community. Okay. So my mantra is I try to behave, like the leader and coach that I would like to have for myself. So just look at the mirror. Don't complain about life and how difficult things is. Act as a leader, act as a coach, work on yourself, and help others develop themselves. Okay. And if I give you one live comment from Nache, which I'm coaching in my team, and we had some reflection about the coaching process, and I've just put here her reflection regarding the way we do the coaching together. And she says, really, the self-reflection in the daily business helps feel the improvement. Self-reflection, by the way, is something you have to do in the business. If you apply Lean principle, you have the Kaizen, which is the continuous improvement. And the reflection is called Hansei in Japanese. And I guess Taishi Ono said, there's no Kaizen if there's no Hansei. So if you don't reflect, you cannot improve anything that you do in your life or in business. Okay, so self-reflection is a very important part. And the second point that she reported was the coaching among each other is cost efficient and therefore win-win for all. It's really interesting to try to develop an entire team by defining roles and by helping each other and by having some senior people coaching junior people and trying to bring the entire team to a level where everybody feels happy and everybody develops master skills. Even if the daily job is not as easy and, you may not have a job where you feel happy at the moment, but you can still work on your skills and you can still develop yourself as a person. And by working on yourself daily and by achieving a level of mastery, you will automatically feel better and you feel joy and happiness. And this is one of the goals of the Harada Method, which we would like to teach to all of you. Okay, so that's from my point of view, my lessons learned regarding the Harada Method. Now I would hand over to Norman to present you the details of the Harada Method. Norman, you can share.
Thank you very much. Of course, it was wonderful, but very fast. We're giving you too much in too short a period of time. But maybe this is just giving a kickstart. Some of you in the audience have some familiarity with the Harada Method. I was very lucky to find Mr. Harada close to 10 years ago. But going back in my past, I was very lucky to meet two key people. One was Shigeo Shingo, and the other was Taiichi Ono. Shingo was a consultant to Toyota, and Ono was the vice president who really discovered the idea of what we call the total production system, just in time, or what we call Lean in the West, and now, of course, we call Agile when we look at the software industry. And Ono came up with 7 ways to address the strategic problems of Toyota. The strategic problems of Toyota, the main problem Toyota has is they had no cash. They were running out of cash in the mid-1950s, and the bank wouldn't give them money, so they were going bankrupt. And Ono looked at the factory floor and he said, look at all the inventory there. If I could reduce that inventory, we have all the cash that we need. So I'm mentioning this to you, as those of you in the lean or the agile community, is to focus on what are your strategic needs? What do you strategically need? Then identify the kinds of waste that you can go after. I'm working a lot now in the hospital arena, and many people in the hospitals are following the 7 ways from Ono, which I think is so funny, because the biggest waste in a hospital setting is, number one, is they're killing patients. 450,000 people are dying every year from medical error. And 50% of the doctors are going through burnout. Those are the big wastes, not inventory, not transportation, etc. I was very lucky. I discovered this 8th waste maybe 20, 25 years ago when I started to teach what I call quick and easy Kaizen. Now, what is it? And where do you start to get rid of it? It came to me a long time ago, but some things just came to me now. It's amazing. Just came to me yesterday and this morning to look more closely at what is the 8th waste? What is it? Where do you get started? Well, most of us in management, in work, we try to improve other people. When we talk about continuous improvement, we're trying to continuously improve the process or continuously improve other people. We don't stop. The way Christopher and Ahmed said, and John, is to look at a mirror. Look at yourself. Look at a mirror first and see, are you what you want? Are you living up to your potential? What do you want from this life? Are you living up to your potential? When that's clear, you look in the mirror. Are you overweight? Do you drink too much? Do you smoke? What are your habits? What are you locked in? Most of us are prisoners of our own habits. So I recommend you start and look at yourself. Identify what you want to do to grow. Pick something that you want to be the number 1 best in the world at. Pick anything that people need that you could become the best in the world at. Try to become an artisan in something. That's where to start. Then when you start on yourself, we can start to look, how do we serve and help others? How do we serve and help others? Whoop, go back here. Waiting for good work or getting it. Most work, unfortunately, is not designed for human beings. If we go back to the 1800s, people were either farmers or artisans or immigrants in America. And most of those immigrants had some fundamental skill. And along comes Frederick Taylor and Henry Ford, and they simplify work. And Ford sets up the assembly line and gives people work that they do over and over and over and over again every 3 to 5 minutes. People were so bored, they were leaving. So Ford doubled everybody's wage, doubled their wage in order to keep them there. And Ford Motor Company became the world's largest, most successful company, and everybody copied the assembly line. But what did they do? They dehumanized work. Well, I want you today, as a new start, to change this. I hope that after this session, you will all go out and look around you, look in your office, look in your factories, look at what people are doing, and think, are we utilizing people to their full potential? Can we design work differently? The last 100 years, we've been following Ford, but today it's beginning to change. Honda, as an example. Even Toyota has 2 pillars. Just in time is one. The second pillar says respect for people. But are they giving people respect when they have a 3-minute tack time? That means every 3 minutes, the person is doing the same work over and over and over again. Yes, we try to optimize the production process to make profits for the company, but we don't optimize the process that's good for people so they're excited when they come to work. What makes people excited? Focusing on their own growth. When people focus on becoming an artisan, I don't care what it is that serves other people, they could have a really great life. How do you do this? Go out with your video, do what Ono did. Ono put a circle in the middle of a factory floor, in a chalk circle in white. And he made a plant manager stand there. He made an owner of a supplier company stand there all day long and just look for waste. Those were the 7 wastes. Now I've added the 8th waste. I want you to go out and look at that 8th waste. Look at what people are doing, and can you begin to change? Honda has a new system that they just started. Instead of having the worker standing in front of the assembly line and having a takt time of maybe 3 to 4 minutes, now the worker is up on the platform and they're building the car. Maybe they're there for 30 minutes, maybe longer. This is done in Germany, in BMW and Mercedes and Volkswagen. There they focus on the individual being an artisan. Honda has just done this in Columbus, Ohio. Canon has a wonderful system. They started off with an assembly line, then a conveyor belt. Then they set up a cell, and they put 3 or 4 people into a cell. Then they took 1 person out and 3 people in the cell, then 2 people. Now they can have 1 person make the whole copier with 1,000 parts. Takes 3 hours. People are capable of doing so many great things. And that's where I found the Harada Method. I was so fortunate. I'll show you this in a minute. I've published 100 Japanese books in English. That's what I've done for the last 30, 40 years. I go to Japan and I see what have they done to improve their productivity and quality. And about 10 years ago, I discovered Takashi Harada. He was a track and field coach at a junior high school, and he wanted his students to be successful. He came from the poorest neighborhood in Osaka. In order to get into high school, they had a #1 pass the test. Well, they were not very good students coming from this area. Or the parents had to pay for high school. But the parents were poor. They couldn't pay. The only third option they had is if they were really successful in sports, then they could get a scholarship to go into high school. So he studied the world. For 20 years, he went all over the world, to Finland, to Shanghai. He looked at the best educational system looked at the best coaches in the world, like John Wooden, who studied great methodologies, and finally came up with the Harada Method. Not complicated. Once he came up with this, 12 students won 13 gold medals. That means for the next 6 years in a row, 2 or 3 students won a gold medal. That meant that they were the best athlete, not just in Osaka, but in all of Japan. Out of 12,000 schools, there's one little school that's getting 12 gold medals. He became very popular in Japan. He started his own consulting company, and he's trained 90,000 people. And I was very lucky to find him. And I went to Japan because that's what I do, to get books from him to train us in the West. Okay. The first step in the Harada Method is to just look at what you want. What do you want in your life? What do you value in this life? And look at it in terms of others and you. The real power came to Harada when he got his students not only to focus on themselves, but he got students to focus on others. If you have a child in need, you'll do everything possible to help that child. That's what he found. When one young lady won the gold medal, they asked her, what did you do? They interviewed her. What did you do to win the gold medal? And she said, I wash the dishes at home every night. Now, what's washing the dishes at home every night got to do with winning a gold medal? What it meant is that she focused on others at home. She did something different. When you do something different, slowly other people will begin to follow you. So you decide, what do you want? I have one student, he lives in Asia. He wants to make $5 million a year as a consultant. I don't tell people what to do. They can decide anything that they want. Then you lay out a goal. How are you going to get it? You lay out a specific goal to attain your wants and your needs and your values. Once you come up with a very strong goal, what I did 9 years ago is when I learned from Harada, I went back to Harada. I went up to see him quite a few times to take courses from him, to become certified by him. I decided I want to be just like him. I want to be the best Harada teacher in the West. And I went through the method, and that was my goal. And then I set up these 64 tasks. That's part of our system. And I set up a series of routines that I have to do to change my habits. And then, as it was said earlier, you plan, do, check, act. You schedule, you monitor. And the last key is you have to have a coach. Every great athlete has a coach. Let's see, I'm going to skip quickly. By the way, everybody can have a copy of our slides. Tiger Woods, one of the best golfers, probably the best golfer of the last 15 years or so, he has a coach to work with. Babe Ruth, I love this because what was unusual about Babe Ruth is he pitched and he bat. Harada has a student called Shohei Otani. Shohei Otani, when he was in high school, he followed the Harada Method. He said, I want to be the best pitcher in Japan. I want to throw at 99 miles an hour. Then he said, no, that's not enough. I want to be a great batter, just like Babe Ruth. And he did. Everybody has a coach. Literally every great athlete has a coach. Every CEO that I've met, and I've met over 100 of them, they all have a coach. But when you go to work, people don't have coaches. Do you have a coach? Do you have somebody? You have bosses. But everybody needs a coach to observe them objectively and to help them improve. This is part of the method. It's not complicated. You could be trained and learn how to be a great coach. A manager and a supervisor looks at people to make sure they control the people that they're doing the work in the process correctly. A coach only focuses on helping you to develop yourself so that you could be the best person that you possibly can be. I love this. I want you to look up something called RIZAP. R-I-Z-A-P. 100,000 people in Japan have been trained in this method called RIZAP. This is an example. In 2 months, they take you from the guy on the left to the guy on the right. They do it with a coach. The coach works with you only for a couple of hours, twice a week for 2 months. They get you to focus on you. They give you the fundamental principles of what you have to do to make yourself have a better image. I like you focusing on this. I have a young man who looks like the one on the left. He's a lovely young man, but he looks just like the one on the left. And I recommended to him that he look on the guy at the right. I want him to bring energy into his life. If you bring energy into your life, you will attract amazing, wonderful things that you could do. Coaching is an art, and all of you could learn to be a great coach. And that's what the Harada Method is all about. And I know we've gone so fast that what we're doing today is very, very confusing. I'm sure you're very confused. But I recommend you take one step at a time. Look at yourself and see, are you living up to your potential? Look at yourself. Look in a mirror. Then when you decide you recognize that you have opportunities to grow, then you lay out a path for your growth, and you might like to learn the Harada Method. We think that would help, and I have students here that have used the method for their own personal growth. This is just an example of what Otani puts together. This is part of the method. There are 5 basic forms, and this is one of the forms. And Otani decided he wanted to be drafted in one of the top 8 teams in Japan, and in order to do that, he had to throw it 99 miles an hour. And then what he did is he moved this over here. This is what we call areas. And he determined what is he going to do to throw at 99 miles an hour. Has to improve his range of motion. He has to strengthen the body core, turn at the pivot. The other thing that's wonderful is since he was part of a team, the team got together to help him. That's part of the method. It's not just you yourself, but you have team members. So one team member would take turn at the pivot, and they would work with Otani to try to get him to improve turn, because everybody needs somebody to observe them. And I know that I'm going too fast. These are just some pictures. I spent the last year making a Harada Method app, and now I don't know why. This is a funny story. I was in Japan. I was with Mr. Harada. He introduces me to some people from Toyota, and they wanted to make a Harada Method app. And they asked me to help, and I got involved. And so for 1 year, I'm deeply involved. Then at the end of the year, I have the app. Now I have to figure out, how do I get people to use it? It's a funny thing. You might like to look at it. If you go to the Apple Store, you can download it and spend a couple of weeks testing it. But I think for you to really use it properly, you'll need training. And that's what I want to do. I want to make Harada coaches. I want people, if you're listening, to learn a little bit more about what we're doing. And I want to teach all of you to be coaches so that you can teach other people so that they can be more fulfilled. We're going through time very, very quickly, and I'm going to turn it back to John. And then what I'd like to do is I'd like you to ask questions. I'd like you to ask questions, and I could turn off unmute all. So John, I'll put you back for a few minutes, and then I'll unmute all so that people can come in and ask questions. Go ahead, John. You have to unmute it, John. You have your mute on. John, unmute yourself. Okay, go ahead, John.
Got it. There you go. I don't know if we had a conclusion slide. I thought we did. So, as you heard from the different folks and stuff, and particularly Norman, we've got a passion for helping people, and that's really what we would like to do with these.
Hey, John, hold on. Somebody's asking a question. Go ahead, Renee. What was your question?
I think it's just picking up background noise.
I think there was somebody scolding a kid. Better coach them. Anyways, so the thing we're trying to do here is, by kicking off these podcasts, is to bring awareness first, and awareness gets people to, do a self-evaluation, like Norm talks about, looking in the mirror. We want organizations to look in the mirror too. So if you're representing an organization, there's ways to use this app throughout the organization, not just for individual application, but for application for your organization. And so with that, I don't want to take up much more time. We want to thank you all for being there. Here's the last thing I'll leave you with, and then we'll open it up for questions. We've been trying to send out surveys, but to be honest with you, we haven't had very good participation. I would really encourage you that after listening to this today, tell us what we did well, tell us what we should change, and tell us what you'd like to hear more about during these podcasts. This is something we're going to continue, and we're going to make it available for everybody, because we want to change as many people as we possibly can. So with that, let's open it up for questions. And this is always hard, so if somebody could say, or if you could just text and say, I got a question, Norm can click on that and ask that person the question.
Okay, God, I'm going to unmute all. Go ahead, Kent. You have a question. Kent, do you have a question?
Oh, no, sir.
Okay, anybody there with a question? Bruce?
No, I'm just listening. Thank you.
Okay, come on. Anybody have a question? Thank you for being here. David, you have a question? Let's see. David, do you have a question?
Looks
No?
like people are signing off.
Okay, well, like John said, I hope we could get feedback from all. I mean,
There's a question in the chat, Norman.
What?
There's a question in the chat. I'll read it for you. It says, from the
Okay.
Polytech University of San Luis. My question is,
We
do
have
you
a
have a representative in Mexico?
I have trained, Monica, a lot of people I have trained that are in Mexico, but not really what we call a representative in Mexico. So maybe you will learn the method and you could become our representative in Mexico. That would be wonderful. Monica, you contact me later and maybe you'd like to become a student of mine and you could begin to teach in Mexico. Anybody else? Thank you.
Norman, who was?
Go ahead.
Hi, Norman. It's Bruce in Nova Scotia. I'm wondering who is your most impactful coach?
Well, I've been so lucky. You know, I started off in life, Bruce, as the dumbest kid in school. If you look at my 9th grade yearbook, in the yearbook, it shows a picture of Norman Bodek. And underneath the picture, it said, Norman Bodek is the most likely to get ahead. Most likely to get ahead because he needs one. I was the dumbest kid in school. Why was I the dumbest kid in school? Because I have such a bad memory. I still have a bad memory. I can remember everything that I experienced, but I don't remember what I read. I've studied maybe 6 languages. I'm lucky I can speak English. Bruce, a miracle in my life is I attract great people. Somehow, I meet Shingo and I meet Ono. I meet Fukuda. If you look at the books I've published, over 100 Japanese books in English. I've met such great people. All of what we call lean. Why I'm called the godfather of lean is because I met all the people that created lean and I published their books in English and brought them to the West. I think the 2 greatest people, of course, when we come to lean and agile is Ono and Shingo. Shingo is really the father of the whole event. One day, Ono, as I said, ran out of cash and needed help. He noticed they had all of this money in inventory, but he didn't know how to reduce it. And so he went to Shingo, who was a very famous consultant in Japan, and he said, Shingo, I need your help. I want you to consult with me. And then he said to Shingo, how do we get rid of the inventory? The main problem is these punch presses. It's taking 4 hours to change over a punch press. He says, Shingo, I want you to do it in 2 hours. And Shingo said, okay. This is funny. Then he comes back to Shingo 2 days later and he says, Shingo, 2 hours is no good. You got to do it in less than 10 minutes. And the brilliance of Shingo is Shingo said, okay, amazing. Okay, I'll help you get it down from 4 hours to less than 10 minutes. And he did. How did he do it? He watched. He went out to the factory floor and he watched. How many of you pay consultants to come to your company to just look? No, you want them to come and do something. You know, that you want them to run a Kaizen Blitz. You want them to teach you a visual factory. All of the wonderful tools that are used at Toyota, come and teach us how to use these tools. Shingo just sat. And Shingo figured out how to eliminate the waste of changeover. And then, of course, Ono did a couple of things that were so brilliant. One, and we don't do it in the West, and I don't know why. I don't know why. But Ono would go over to somebody. Ono had the clear vision. This is what you're missing in your company, is a clear purpose and a clear vision of what your company is all about. That has to come from senior managers, but they surely could be helped. And Ono had a clear vision of just in time. He says, I'm making one car at a time. That's all I should be doing is one car at a time. I don't need mountains of inventory. I visited Oldsmobile before I went to Japan. They made 1,000 cars in one day, 500 on each shift. They had 1,000 parts on the floor. I go to Toyota and there's 18 engines. Instead of 1,000, they had 18. Ono would go over to you as a manager. You have 10 people working for you. And Ono would say, I want you to do it, Bruce, with 7 people. He would always ask people to do the impossible. He never had any idea if they can do it or not. He didn't know if you can do it at 7, but he knew if he didn't ask you, right, you wouldn't have rose to the occasion. One day we're standing out in front of a warehouse. We're standing in front of a warehouse, and Ono says to the president of Toyota Gosei, I want you to get rid of the warehouse. At Toyota, we don't need warehouses. I want you to take that warehouse and make it into a machine shop. I want you to retrain everybody and make them a mechanic. That's a key which is missing in Lean. We don't have this. In fact, Ronald, do you have a representative in North Carolina? Yes, Ahmed is a great Harada Method person that you should contact in North Carolina. And we'll send you a copy of the slides, Ronald, and we'll put in how you can contact Ahmed. Anybody else have a question? Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Anybody else before we break? Also, we'll send slides to everybody. Okay, anybody else have?
All right, so guys, if you get a survey, please help us out, give us some feedback, and look forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're gonna be doing this every 2 weeks, and eventually we're gonna be doing it every week. And maybe some of you out there would like to participate with us the way we're doing it today. Is that we feel 2 things. One, Lean and Agile is missing the development of people. We want to focus on that. 2, I want to focus on the 8th waste. I want everybody to consider becoming an artisan. Everybody to recognize that you're stuck in your habits. Look at you. Look at that mirror. How many of you are overweight? Believe it or not, 40% of Americans are overweight. I'm lucky. Somebody earlier mentioned Paul Akers. Paul Akers did me a great favor. He took one look at me and he said, Norman, you weigh too much. He says, give up sugar and give up wheat. I don't know why, but I listened to him and I lost 25 pounds. It was a great moment for me just to listen. Anybody else have a question before we break? I want to thank Ahmed. Ahmed is an Agile Scrum Master, and I love Ahmed. Ahmed did something so unusual. I ran a 2-day workshop for a company here, a hospital in Washington State, and Ahmed said, I want to do it with you. And he got on an airplane just to fly to teach with me for 2 days, and he was wonderful. Christopher, and he lives in North Carolina. Christopher is a wonderful student of mine. Christopher is a continuous improvement. He's a lean manager. He's an agile manager. Works for probably the best bank in Switzerland. He lives in France, but he drives every day over to Switzerland to do this work. And I love him. Every day I get his Harada forms for me to give him feedback. And John, I thank you so much for being an inspiration for me. And I look forward for us to continue. I want to gather a whole membership group that we're all going to work on improving ourselves first, improving our companies second, and then improving the society that we live in. Thank you so much for being here. Very much. Look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Take care, everyone. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you.
Guys, shall we debrief in a few minutes?
Can
Here.
we stop? Can we stop recording?
I can stop the recording. Thank you.